Tonight on Steelers Talk, I've got some eye-opening Mike Tomlin stats after Coach T secured his 9th AFC North Division championship in his tenure as the Steelers head coach. And then I'll break down my notes from my film study today of Steelers versus Ravens in Week 18. We've got, I believe, 10 offensive takeaways and 8 defensive takeaways on today's show. So make sure you guys stick around for those notes. And if you guys want actual film examples of everything we're going to talk about in my film takeaway section later in today's show, make sure you guys give me a follow at Jack_Sperry on X. That's where I put all of my film examples, because we can't put them up here on YouTube because we'll get demonetized. But on X, we're free to share that content with you guys. So if you want weekly Steelers film analysis, that's where I put all the film clips and my thoughts on everything that I see on film. So if you guys want to see the actual evidence of everything we're going to be talking about on today's show, you guys can give me a follow on X at Jack_Sperry. And here's what I'm going to do for you guys here today. Everyone who follows me at Jack_Sperry on X this week is going to get a free raffle entry for our watch party raffle that we're going to be doing on Monday night for Wild Card Weekend here versus the Houston Texans. Make sure you guys click that follow button. I greatly appreciate your guys' support. Now let's get into the Tomlin stuff here, guys, and some eye-opening stats with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And of course, now the Steelers have gone 10-7 for the third straight season in a row. They're 10-7 this year, and of course that was good enough to win them the AFC North Division Championship, and they will now have a home playoff game on Monday night versus the Houston Texans. And listen, man, let's give Coach T some credit here, all right? Let's not, completely, get on our knees here for Mike Tomlin, but let's at least give credit where it's due, okay? Let's start with this. This is the third straight 10-win season for the Pittsburgh Steelers under head coach Mike Tomlin, and it's also their third consecutive playoff berth. And the reason why this is impressive to me, guys, is because of the quarterbacks and the offenses that the Steelers have had over this 3-year stretch. I mean, this is what we've been working with at quarterback the last 3 years. Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, Mason Rudolph, all of which are backups at this point. Same thing goes for Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. You got the 10 wins with those quarterbacks, and then you get Aaron Rodgers, who's coming over from, a Jets situation that was absolutely terrible last year, and you once again win 10 games with Aaron Rodgers as your starting quarterback here in Pittsburgh. And then when you look at the offensive production in those 3 seasons where you're getting the double-digit wins, again, guys, that's 3 games over 500. All right, 2023, final season of Matt Canada, obviously complete dumpster fire. And then during the Arthur Smith era, it's been better, and it's been getting exponentially better here over the course of these 2 seasons, but it's still not necessarily at a level where you're playing fantastic football offensively. It's an average offense at best right now here in Pittsburgh, and despite that, Mike Tomlin is getting this team not only to the playoffs, but to double-digit win seasons and getting them to 3 wins over the 500 mark. And listen, man, I think it's a fair point to look at these offenses and see how they're underperforming and how these aren't top 10 groups and say, Mike Tomlin has a hand in that, because he obviously does. Whenever you are the longest tenured head coach in the NFL, you're going to have a lot of say in how your roster is constructed, and certainly Tomlin has made some misses in terms of, drafting quarterbacks. You look at Kenny Pickett, bringing in veteran quarterbacks. He's had a couple misses there. He's had his fair share of misses when it comes to offensive coordinator hires. So it's certainly a fair point to point to Tomlin and say, hey, he's part of the problem here. He's not building the roster correctly. He's not filling out the coaching staff correctly. But with that said, guys, most head coaches with the rosters that Tomlin has had over these last 3 years would not have gotten those teams to 10-win seasons and to the postseason. So I think, Tomlin, I think the biggest criticism you can lay at the feet of Coach T is that maybe he's not the best staff builder and he's not the best roster builder, but he's a damn good football coach, man. And, he can take a roster and he can get that team to be very competitive, especially during the regular season. I mean, this is Tomlin's 12th 10-plus win season in his Steelers coaching tenure. That's almost 2/3 of the seasons that he has coached here in Pittsburgh, where the Steelers are not only above 500, they're getting to double-digit wins. And again, for most of his tenure, it's been a 16-game schedule, not a 17-game schedule. So that is a very impressive stat when you talk about the longevity and the stability of the Mike Tomlin Steelers here. And then also the Steelers have won 9 division titles now in 19 years under Mike Tomlin. That is about a 50% hit right there. So Listen, man, the truth of the matter is I think most NFL fan bases, especially when you talk to Jets fans or Raiders fans or Browns fans or Lions fans, that teams that have actually gone through it and have had, decades worth of misery and bad football for their respective franchises, they would kill for a head coach like Mike Tomlin that wins a division title every other year essentially and gets 10-plus wins 2 in every 3 seasons. I mean, that is a level of stability and a level of success and competitiveness, at least in the regular season, that is kind of unmatched, and you really don't see this all that often in the National Football League. However, the regular season isn't the issue with Mike Tomlin, and that's what we all know here in Pittsburgh. The big issue with Mike Tomlin, and really what's driven a lot of the vitriol against Coach T, is that he hasn't been able to deliver in the playoffs. I mean, there's only been a handful of seasons. I think the Steelers have only won playoff games in 4 of his 18 completed seasons here in Pittsburgh, which is not a very high hit rate, and his postseason record is only 8-11. So he's got a less than 500 record in the postseason. And also, Pittsburgh hasn't won a playoff game in 8 seasons now. I mean, technically it's 9 if you include this season, but obviously you haven't played a playoff game yet. So it's been 8 completed seasons, no playoff win, and now if he doesn't win against Houston on Monday night, it's going to be 9 seasons here in Pittsburgh under head coach Mike Tomlin without a playoff win. That's going to be something that is going to be very damning for Mike Tomlin if he's not able to deliver that, and soon. But, he does have a chance to redeem himself this week versus the Houston Texans. He's got Aaron Rodgers. This is a defense that's playing its best football of the season when it matters most. You got an offensive line that is really gelled together. You're getting DK Metcalf back. You just got a big-time victory at home in Week 18 versus your division rival. There's a lot of belief in this locker room right now, and I've been saying it all season, guys. This Pittsburgh Steelers team is built to give this team the best chance at playoff success in quite a while, in my opinion. So you guys can actually check out our wild card week preview, Steelers versus Texans, if you guys want to get yourselves ready for Monday night. Of course, we still got a week to go here before we get to our playoff matchup here, but make sure you guys check out that video if you haven't already. We put it out earlier today. I'll put the chip to that one in the top right and the link in the comments and description of today's show. And guess what, guys? No matter what happens in this wild card game, I don't think Tomlin is going anywhere. It's been well reported now that the Steelers are not going to fire Mike Tomlin, and then Tom Pelissero from NFL Network said just today that Mike Tomlin has no plans of leaving the Pittsburgh Steelers. So if you're one of these guys that doesn't like Mike Tomlin, you want a change of leadership here in Pittsburgh, I hate to break it to you guys, it's not going to happen because, the level of stability and the level of winning and competitiveness that Mike Tomlin has bred here in Pittsburgh has earned him likely a 20th season as the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So let me know who you guys got next Monday night. Are you going with the Pittsburgh Steelers, type PIT, or are you going with the Houston Texans, type HOU? Will Mike Tomlin finally deliver a playoff win here in the city of Pittsburgh? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments for today's pinned question. In just a second here, I'm going to let you guys know about our sponsor today at Mando. Well, I tell you about Mando Whole Body Deodorant today. Let me know who you think wins this playoff matchup. The new year is officially upon us now, and this is the time of the year, guys, where we leave some of the things behind us and in the past, and we start fresh. There's one thing I definitely will be bringing with me to 2026, though, and that is Mando Whole Body Deodorant. All of Mando's products are proven to block odor all day and control odor for up to 72 hours. They're baking soda free and paraben free, and they come in a great variety of scents such as Clover Woods, Mount Fuji, or my personal favorite, Bourbon Leather. Some men mask their BO with scents. Mando men get the job done right. Don't mask it, Mando it. Available in retailers near you, or just head on over to shopmando.com because for a limited time only, new customers get 20% off site-wide with our exclusive code. Use code CHAT at shopmando.com for 20% off site-wide plus free shipping. And just to show you guys I actually use and love Mando products, I actually brought my stick of deodorant with me to work today just to show you guys that I actually use their deodorant every single day, and it keeps me smelling fresh. I like the Bourbon Leather scent, and this isn't the only product I use from them, guys. I also have a big bottle of body wash in my shower at home, and they got a bunch of great products for you guys to choose from. Just head on over to shopmando.com. That's shopmando.com, and use our code CHAT for 20% off site-wide. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. Mando's got you covered from head to toe with deodorants plus sweat control. Say goodbye to sweat stains and hello to long-lasting freshness with our friends at Mando Whole Body Deodorant today. All right, so now let's dive into my film takeaways. I spent the afternoon perusing the film from last night's win over the Baltimore Ravens, and I've got some thoughts that I want to share with you guys here to kind of put a bow on the regular season finale. Let's start with the offense here, and it was another slow start for the Pittsburgh Steelers offense, and this has unfortunately been a theme for the Steelers on offense all season long. Now, they've had some fast starts, but especially in the second half of the year, this team has not been very good on the script. They only had 3 points in the first half versus the Baltimore Ravens, and they put together a pretty decent and long final drive of the first half, and of course they have that terrible play call with 2 seconds left in the first half from the 1 yard line where you're tossing it to Kenny Gainwell. I mean, just an absolutely terrible play call. You don't get any points, and there's just a lot of missed opportunities on offense, in my opinion, in that first half. And then also Aaron Rodgers, for as good as he was in the second half, and we'll get to that here in a second, he was not very sharp in the first half, at least when it came to throwing the ball down the field. There wasn't a whole lot of open receivers, and Rodgers, when he was pushing the ball downfield, so that's 10 or more air yards in the first half, he went 0 for 6. In the first half. So that's obviously something that, this team needs to improve on as they head into the playoffs. You can't just put together 2 good quarters and consistently expect to win playoff games. You got to put together 4 good quarters, and that has unfortunately been something the Steelers have been able to do at a high level as of late. But then, in the second half, vintage Aaron Rodgers did absolutely show up, and he finishes the game with an awesome stat line after a truly great performance in the third and fourth quarters in this game. He finishes with a 66% completion percentage, almost 300 yards passing, and a touchdown with no picks. But really what was great about Rodgers' performance in particular was how he performed in the clutch. He went 11 of 14 in the fourth quarter last night for 133 yards, and his 1 touchdown, of course, came to Calvin Austin III on that game-winning touchdown pass, and his passer rating over 130. And he made some classic Aaron Rodgers throws, man. Looking people off, the beautiful stick nod to Pat Freiermuth, the double move from Calvin Austin, that beautiful fade to Adam Thielen, put absolutely on a pin. Like, Aaron Rodgers had some awesome, classic, vintage Aaron Rodgers throws last night. And what he did in the second half was simply remarkable. Without DK Metcalf, with some of the struggles that we've been having lately. I mean, going into that second half, it was kind of like 6 straight bad quarters of football in a row for the offense. And to, take on that adversity and put together one of the best halves of offense this team has put together in any game this season, DK or no DK, was a big time a moment and a signature victory for QB1. Now we get to, kind of the more group effort here. That really was the passing game, especially in the second half. I think something that Rodgers did a really good job of in this game is that he spread the ball around, and, he never really honed in on one specific target. He forced the Baltimore Ravens defense to cover every blade of grass and cover everybody on the field, because when you're missing a guy as impactful as DK Metcalf, you got to get everybody involved to replace him. And, we certainly saw that last night, because 9 different Steelers caught a pass last night, and then 6 different Steelers had at least 3 catches. So it wasn't just like, Connor Hayward had a catch, and then, everyone else just has a bunch of 1 catches, and then, MVS is getting all the targets. No, it was a really good distribution between everybody in the Steelers offense, which kept the Ravens defense on their toes, and it forced them to defend every blade of grass, and it worked in the second half for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now it's great that we get DK Metcalf back in the fold, and of course he will assume his normal duties as wide receiver 1 here in Pittsburgh. And because of that, I think now it's time to reduce Marquez Valdes-Scantling's role in the offense. Okay, and I know before DK got the suspension, MVS was filling in as the wide receiver 3, and Calvin was kind of more of a rotational guy. But I think heading into this week, this is how I would set up my starting rotation. I would have, of course, DK as your wide receiver 1, Adam Thielen still your number 2 guy that primarily plays in the slot, and then Calvin can be your guy on the other side of DK, because I think Calvin provides more than Marquez Valdes-Scantling does. They both have really good speed, but as we saw with that double move last night, and frankly, Calvin got open on another deep shot. Rodgers just underthrew him in the first quarter on the first drive of the game, but he stacked Nate Wiggins on that route. I mean, Austin's a good route runner. He's a shifty guy, can run double moves. He's good after the catch as well. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, not only does he have a little bit of a drop issue, he hasn't really been on the same page with Rodgers all that much since he arrived here in Pittsburgh. I think Calvin provides more value to this Steelers offense. And I think as a wide receiver 3, he's a pretty darn good player, and he's pretty complementary to the skill sets of DK Metcalf and Adam Thielen. But let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Pick your wide receiver 3 for Wild Card Weekend. Are you going with Marquez Valdes-Scantling type MVS, or are you going with Calvin Austin III type CA3? For me, I'm going with Calvin as my number 3 receiver. Not to say, MVS can't get any snaps or anything like that, but I would give Calvin more snaps than MVS in this week's ball game. Now, another thing that the Steelers did on offense, and this goes into the defense as well, getting off the field pretty early in the third quarter in particular, but the time of possession battle was just dominated by the Pittsburgh Steelers, particularly in the second half. Now, the total time of possession battle, this is what it looked like, but the Ravens were in the lead in this category heading into the half, and then you end up winning the battle by nearly 10 minutes. So that is, significant that the Steelers were able to put together some really long drives, take off a lot of time on the clock, and they had significantly more plays in this ball game. And I think that was a big reason why the Steelers were able to go down and get those final 2 touchdown drives, because the Ravens defense was gassed. They were tired, and the Steelers were able to put together those 2 huge touchdown drives that ended up making the difference in the ball game. But then also, I thought the Steelers were generally good on third and fourth down. Now, there's certainly some exceptions, especially in the first half, where they've had some really bad play calls, some really bad decisions on some weighty moments there. But in general, they were pretty good in these moments. They were 10 of 18 on third and fourth downs in this ball game. And really, Aaron Rodgers was terrific on third and long in this game, whether it was dumping it off to Kenny Gainwell on a 3rd and 7 and he would pick up a first down, or whether that's, throwing up, the final touchdown on a 3rd and 10 on a double move. Like, this team, showed up in those big moments. Also, Pat Freiermuth's stick nod to get all the way down to the 6-yard line. That was on a 3rd and long as well. So, those are some really big moments in this game, and that once again points to Aaron Rodgers' prowess and his vintage performance, because he was doing this in 3rd and pass situations. But then also, I thought, the main engine of the offense, I thought Rodgers played great, but really the main engine of the offense, once again, were the running backs here in Pittsburgh. And by the way, Jaylen Warren and Kenny Gainwell are the only running back duo in the NFL this year that both got 1,000 scrimmage yards this year. So this is, one of the better running back duos in football. And in this game in particular, this duo accounted for 173 scrimmage yards on their own. All right. So that is obviously rushing and receiving. But Jaylen Warren, man, this guy's a top 10 running back in football right now, period. Point blank. When you watch him on film, his contact balance, the way he moves in space, it looks like he's ice skating out there at times, where he just glides through space without slowing down. His spin moves, his cuts, his vision. Like, this guy, man, there's not 10 running backs on the planet better than Jaylen Warren, in my opinion. Plus, he can catch passes out of the backfield. I mean, the Ravens just couldn't bring him down all game long. And then when it comes to Kenny Gainwell, he also had a really good game. He led the team in receiving once again. And they used him as a receiver in this game. They would have Jaylen Warren and Kenny Gainwell out there at the same time, and then they would line Kenny out there in the slot or even out wide, and they would get him a legitimate wide receiver, reps out there, and he would get catches. And, he was really productive in this game. They didn't really run it as much with him. They really ran it more with Jaylen Warren. But when it came to the receiver type stuff, they got the ball in Kenny Gainwell's hands quite a bit, and he definitely made the most of it once again. Now we get to the trenches here, and I thought Dylan Cook looked really good on film for yet another week. I mean, I think at this point, the tape speaks for itself. This guy's going to be the starting left tackle for the Pittsburgh Steelers next year. And by the way, you're going to be getting him at a massive discount because he signed a 2-year contract. So he's going to be pretty much your starting left tackle for nothing next year, which is just going to be an incredible bargain for this football team. However, this week in particular is going to be probably his toughest test yet, maybe outside of Myles Garrett. But, having to go up against Will Anderson Jr. and Danielle Hunter, those are two of some of the best edge rushers in football, and they're on the same team. At least with Cleveland, you knew, okay, we can triple team Myles Garrett and, go one-on-one on the other side. It's not going to be as simple against the Houston Texans, which is why that pass rush is so ravenous. But Dylan Cook, man, the film speaks for itself. It's really freaking good, and I'm excited to see what he can do against some of the league's best pass rushers on Monday Night Football. But also, I thought Zach Frazier was just an absolute beast. I thought McCormick was good and Fautano was good as well. Like, I only have limited time here, but I do want to give a big shout out here to Zach Frazier, who was going out on screens and was scooping people out from that center position just beautifully, man. And he was moving the line of scrimmage. He has really turned into one hell of a center, man, and we're really lucky to have him here in Pittsburgh. And then also, hey, Cam Hayward steps up on the Steel City shove. With Darnell Washington now, you need another big man to push Connor Hayward forward. And I thought Cam Hayward did a pretty decent job of it in this game. And I think that play is definitely usable for the rest of this season, even if Darnell Washington is not going to be on the football team for the rest of the season here. But before we get to the defensive film takeaways here, guys, make sure you click that thumbs up icon if you haven't already to help us celebrate Victory Monday. The last one of the regular season, at least. Hopefully we got a couple more Victory Mondays and Tuesdays coming up here, but make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon to celebrate this one with us. All right, so now let's get to the defensive side of the ball. There's lots of man coverage in this football game. They usually do that against Baltimore. They like to go lots of man coverage, and they like to send 5-man pressure looks towards Lamar Jackson to limit his rushing outlets. But I thought they did a really good job of this. I thought Joey Porter Jr. had a good game, but we'll get to him later. But now we'll get to, once again, the weighty downs. And I thought, for the most part, the Steelers did a good job getting the Ravens off the field, okay? The Ravens were 4 of 12 on third down in this football game. Now, they were 2 of 2 on fourth down, so, 6 of 14 or whatever you guys want to call it. Is what it was on those weighty downs. But the thing that wasn't so great on these moments is that all 3 of the big touchdowns Baltimore got in this game were on third and fourth down. All right, there was a 4th and 3. I believe there was a 3rd and 1, and then there was another third down, I think like 7 or something like that, where all the big play touchdowns happen, and that just can't happen on those big moments. But certainly Baltimore took advantage of those times and those coverage busts and made some plays, and they made it interesting at the end. That's for damn sure. But now we can get to some individual performances here where I thought Cam Hayward was absolutely unbelievable. I mean, one of the best performances of his career, honestly. Like, he was holding the line of scrimmage so well. I think he had 7 tackles. By the way, he finishes the regular season number 1 in the NFL among defensive tackles in tackles this year, and then also snaps. So for all the people calling Cam Hayward a diva before this season, all this different stuff, dude, this guy is one of the older DTs in the league, and he is working about as hard as anybody in the game, and he is as productive as anybody in the game. He's also the number 1 graded defensive tackle in football, by the way. This guy is worth every single penny. He's a great Steeler. He's a great leader in the locker room. And I'm really glad he's a Pittsburgh Steeler, let's put it that way. But this defensive line, in my opinion, still needs a nose tackle, okay? And when the Ravens were getting things going on the ground early in the game, a lot of it was because Keanu Benton was just getting driven backwards as he usually is. He's just not a nose tackle, man. I've been saying it for multiple years now. Keanu Benton is a penetrator. He's a disruptor. He's not somebody that just anchors on a double team and holds the line of scrimmage. If you ask him to do that, he's going to fail. And that's what they continually ask him to do. And, it's not just me saying this, guys. It's James Harrison, who's actually got a really entertaining podcast with Joe Hayden, by the way. If you guys should check it out. But this is what he had to say about Keanu Benton. He says, if they're not doing that down in and down out, I see too much trying to swim over, get over this, dip and dives because he ain't got the anchor. I ain't going to lie. I ain't seen him hold a double team yet. And that's what you've got to do. When you're the 3 interior, you've got to be able to anchor. And listen, man, he doesn't even play 3 tech all that much. He plays 1 tech in this defense, and you really got to be able to anchor if you're going to be a nose tackle. Now, it's less of a problem when you have Cam Hayward and Derek Harmon next to him because those guys hold the line of scrimmage excellently. All right, so, the weaknesses of Keanu Benton at the line of scrimmage are kind of masked a little bit because Cam and Harmon are so good at the defensive end spot. But, at least a couple times a game, like, Keanu leaves a giant giant hole in the middle of your run defense, and he gets completely blown off of his assigned gap, and it leads to some pretty big holes for run games to exploit. And sometimes he's able to do those dips, and he's able to, get through and, make some big time TFLs and that sort of stuff. But from a down in, down out basis, he's just not an anchorer. He's not somebody that's a terrific run defender in terms of holding your line and allowing other people to succeed. So in my opinion, guys, Omar Khan, it has to be a priority this offseason to find a nose tackle of the future, or at least for the short-term future, because I just don't think Keanu Benton long-term is going to be able to play this position for 10 years or however long the Steelers want him to be here in Pittsburgh. And if they're going to keep him around, and he is extension eligible next year, if they're going to give him an extension, the plan has to be for him and Derek Harmon to play defensive end in the future after Cam Hayward retires, and they have to have somebody else play nose tackle, all right? Because Keanu Benton is not going to be able to do that long term, in my opinion. And I've always thought that he's better as a penetrator, somebody that can get into the backfield and takes on one-on-one opportunities instead of taking on the double teams that he takes on every single week. It just doesn't fit his profile. It's been one of the things that has bothered me about the way this Steelers defense has been structured for years now. I like Keanu as a player, but I think he's being miscast, and that needs to change in future seasons. But Alex Highsmith, sticking with the defensive line here, absolutely still killing it. He was the best edge rusher on the Steelers yesterday. I thought TJ Watt had a decent game, but Highsmith was the one that was really creating havoc around the edge. You could tell Ronnie Stanley was scared shitless of Alex Highsmith and his speed rush. He got called for an illegal formation late in the game because of it, and he's just everywhere. Run defense, getting after the quarterback. He had a nice sack in this game. He's playing legit number one edge rusher type of football right now, and you got to love it. But then, someone that I'd like to see more of at the outside linebacker position is Nick Herbig. He only had 13 snaps last night, and on 2 of those snaps, he was affecting the quarterback. He had a sack, and then he forced a throwaway on a crucial 3rd and 7 late in the game on Lamar Jackson. He's got to be used more often. Now, I like some of the creative ways they were using Herbig in their NASCAR package. They were using him as a blitzing off-ball linebacker. That's a fun way to use Nick Herbig, but dude, TJ Watt just came off, lung surgery. Do we really need to give him the full workload that he's used to having? I get it's a big game, but Nick Herbig has proven that he can be a full-time starter in this defense if called upon. And, I think that this thing should be more of a true 3-man rotation. Keep these guys fresh, especially Watt, because you don't want to take any risks with that lung. I'm sure he's back to 100% and all that different stuff, but Herbig's a damn good player, man, especially on these, gotta have it, get a sack moments. He's got to get more snaps than just 13 on the entire game, in my opinion. But then we get to the secondary. I thought Joey Porter Jr. shut down his guys consistently. Again, he had a couple of losses versus Zay Flowers, but it's Zay Flowers. He's one of the best route runners in football. I still think JPJ is showing he's a legit number 1 corner in this league. And then, unfortunately, I did think that the safeties disappointed in this game for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, to be fair, the Steelers played a kind of a different style of defense than what they've been playing, generally speaking, in the second half of the season. They've been playing a lot more two-high safety. They've been playing a lot more quarters and stuff like that. When they play the Ravens, they play a lot of man and they play a lot of single-high safety. So, to be fair to these guys, it wasn't really the style of defense they're used to playing, but I thought Duggar made some pretty big errors in this game. The first run with Derrick Henry, he took a terrible angle and just straight up whiffed on the tackle. He had a big coverage bust late in the game as well. And, I'm not saying Kyle Duggar is a bad player. I think, the addition of Duggar after the injury to Deshaun Elliott was a godsend here in Pittsburgh. I'm just being objective that this wasn't Kyle Duggar's best game. It also wasn't Ramsey's best game either. And I think, Jalen Ramsey at times gets caught, taking some risks that he used to be able to make because he was a physical freak. But now he's making those same kind of calculated risks, but he can't recover the same way because he is a limited physical player at this point. He doesn't have the speed he once had, and he got absolutely toasted on a blitz look on that first 4th and 3 of the game by Quantez Walker. Okay, and he's a fast player, but Ramsey got absolutely toasted, and he completely misread his ability to cover that guy man to man. And we've seen throughout this year that Ramsey at times has struggled to cover cover guys down the field in one-on-one man coverage. And I think that's why Ramsey definitely projects as a safety in this defense moving forward, heading into future seasons. And at the end of the day, I'm not too worried about the safety tandem, okay? Like next week, we're playing the Houston Texans. They don't run the football particularly effectively. I think the Steelers are going to be going back to playing their quarters and, two high safety looks that they've been running a lot in the second half of the season. And I think, Ramsey and Duggar will be back to doing the things that we're used to seeing them doing. So although it was a disappointing performance this week from the safeties, I expect a bounce back here on Wild Card Weekend. Now, before I go here, we do have one more little bit of news to discuss here before we say goodbye for the day, which is the 2026 opponents for the Pittsburgh Steelers have been released. Of course, the Steelers are going to have a first-place schedule next year because they are division champions. So the home games next year, you are going to have more away games than home games, unfortunately. It was the other way around this year. But, of course, you face the division rivals here in the AFC North, but you also play Atlanta, Carolina, Denver, Houston, and Indy here at home. And then on the road, again, the AFC North. And then you got Jacksonville, New England. Once again, we're going to Foxborough again. We got New Orleans, Philadelphia, Tampa, and Tennessee is what's on the docket for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that's going to be it for today's show, guys. I greatly appreciate you guys sticking with me here to the very end. I know these film takeaway videos can be a bit long, but I appreciate you guys sticking with me. Make sure you type those real ones if you're one of the sickos that made it to the end of today's show. And that'll be it for me here today, guys. We're going to have more great coverage for you guys tomorrow. It is Tomlin Tuesday on Wild Card Weekend, or Wild Card Week, I should say, tomorrow. So we'll get some updates from Coach T. I'm sure there'll be a couple more news updates that come out over the span of tomorrow. Plus, we go live tomorrow. Me and Ponzi will be going live around 6 p.m. Eastern Time to talk about the latest surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers as they head toward their first home playoff game in a half decade here on Monday night. Appreciate all of your guys' support. I'll see you guys tomorrow. And until then, here we go, Steelers.